Welcome to 60 Minutes with Mr. K. This is an encounter with truth, a place for considered reflection on the decisive choices of our past and the guiding principles of our future. It is also an opportunity to pay homage to the remarkable individuals whose lives have served as a compass for others, those who have led with foresight, acted with resolute purpose, and established legacies that continue to light up our path. On this episode today, we'll look beyond the obvious records to comprehend the personal lives beneath the public leadership, the fundamental values that secured the victories, and the wisdom that retains its power to illuminate. This is more than a dialogue. It is an engagement with perspective, a forging of connection, and a search for deeper meaning. This is 60 Minutes with Mr. K. So in our search for the architects of modern Nigerian citizenship, one voice has been both a clarion call and a constant guide. Our guest today has dedicated her work to a single powerful idea, that the authority of the state is derived from and must answer to the people. From the front lines of advocacy to the forums of national discourse, she has challenged complacency, organized conviction, and helped build a movement that insists enough is enough, not as a slogan, but as a principle of civic life. Her leadership has helped redefine accountability for a generation. To discuss the journey, the convictions, and the path forward, we're honored to welcome Yemi Adamolekun. Such a joy, my dear. My darling, so good to see you today.
Good to be here.
60 Minutes with Mr. K.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, let me start by asking you, when you look at the early days of Enough is Enough, what was the moment that convinced you that this movement could truly shift the needle, could truly make Nigerians begin to engage with power?
To be honest, I mean, I was a bystander, for lack of a better word. Future Project had their Future Awards in February of 2010. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala gave the keynote address. And during the address, she challenged the audience that there's a demographic advantage that young people have. At that time, the president was dead or alive. He was missing. There were killings in Jos. There was fuel scarcity. Save Nigeria group had done a big protest in January. So it was the backdrop of that she made that statement. And 2 weeks later, Trude Jidonwon wrote an email titled, "Where is the outrage?" And his point was that we can't sit on Twitter, Facebook, and BlackBerry Messenger, which was the device of use at the time, and continue to complain while the likes of Tunde Bakare and Wole Soyinka would be on the streets. So that led to protests to the National Assembly in March of 2010, and then to the Lagos State Governor in April. So it was on the back of that, the conversation was then, we can't protest every time we are angry. What do we do next? I was just invited to the protest. So my own was just, it sounded like a good idea. So I went. And since elections were 2011, the idea was channel the anger from 2010 into how young people engage the elections. And that's basically what happened. So for me, there wasn't a particular moment of this is what will shift anything. And then in 2011, started operations in January. The lady we hired to run the organization quit in February. Elections were in April. And because I did my youth service 2010, and because I'd spent a lot of my time getting ready for the organization, I said, okay, I'll run it till elections. And then after that, we'll find someone else. So that's how I became EIE's executive director. So there wasn't really a plan. In that sense.
So, when you're looking at leading a civic organization in a complex society like Nigeria, it requires some courage, and it also requires a lot of patience. So what has the journey taught you about the nature of change and the pace at which it happens? Because you look at what you took on and you thought it's just going to be a temporary measure, and for the last 15 years or so, you've ended up in a journey that seems to be it may be a bit condescending. It's a journey to nowhere, because that's the way Nigeria seems. Every election we have said Nigeria is at the precipice.
At the precipice.
At the precipice.
Tipping point.
Tipping point. This is it.
There's another word. There's another word that someone
We're
uses.
just on the cliff.
Yeah.
We're about to fall. If we don't save ourselves, this will be the end. And somehow
We always do.
we survived. We stayed. So for you, what are those things that you will say you've learned that shows that you must have courage to continue, and you must have patience to endure?
I think ultimately, to be honest, one thing that every Nigerian probably knows subconsciously is that Nigeria is blessed in a very way, because some things just don't make sense, but they exist in the country that we call Nigeria. That's one. Number two, I think it's the Nigerians. There's a resilience about Nigerians that we just get on with it, which is bad and it's good. It's good because we continue, we keep moving. It's bad because it paralyzes, so that you disconnect from whatever might be going on around you and just focus on me, myself, and I, and how I can survive within this ecosystem. And there's something about that is destructive to building a nation, where everybody is solely worried about what is in it for me, or how does this work for me. Unfortunately, our religious institutions don't help with that, because there's also a very focus on self, that God will sort out your needs, like you yourself, God will sort you particularly out. That takes out the collective, that takes out community. And so for me, I mean, to be honest, I don't think of it in terms of courage. I just believe I deserve better. I believe Nigeria can give me better. I believe I have experienced Nigeria, a Nigeria that works, in a sense, and I don't see why it shouldn't. And I don't see why I should be a spectator for a Nigeria that doesn't work.
So in 15 years, has Nigeria done better? Has Nigeria given you anything better? Can you look and say, actually, when we started, this is where we were, and we have shifted the needle a little bit from 2010, 2011 to 2015?
I'd say yeah. And I'd say yeah in the sense that there's an increased, in as much as there's an increased awareness in the minds of citizens around how government or public officials behave, and how it's unacceptable, and how it affects our lives to some degree. The other side is that we haven't fully made the connection between, yes, it's bad, but I then have the power to make them behave better. So the culture, I mean, if you think about it, there's nothing really, yes, we're in a democracy, but for most Nigerians, democracy equals elections. So it's something we do every 4 years. And we see it in the, what's the English word I'm looking for? In the noise that comes with elections, where election observation, the candidates, the rallies, all of that. There's just a lot of noise, and there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of coverage. But after elections, then a lot of silence. And what then unfortunately gets amplified is bad behavior. So the person the EFCC is chasing, the person that's sleeping on the floor of the National Assembly, the governor that's misbehaving and negotiating with bandits, or the one that's marrying off women in his state and doing mass weddings, or the FCT minister that's misbehaving as well. So that then becomes the things that get amplified. And we rarely don't, let me not say rarely, we don't see enough stories of citizens basically operating within the structure of what a democracy does. A democracy simply gives us voice, simply gives us agency, and reminds us that the people in public office work for us. So we need to keep repeating that so that we understand. Because it's not really, we don't really teach it. So we must teach it so people can understand it and then act based on it, so to speak.
So when you look at the years that you spent in activism, and you consider the fact that a lot of people have said activists are just there for their own interests. And without a shadow of doubt, there are those who are just there for their own interests.
Indeed.
And that's fine. It's
not fine, but
it's
acknowledge
where we
it.
are. We
It's
acknowledge it.
okay.
So it's not fine. We acknowledge it. So which of your own experiences reshaped your understanding of activism the most that has led to a point where you are just the way you are? Like some people will say, oh, Yemi is just the way she is.
I mean, it's just the way I am, I guess. I grew up on a university campus, and I say that if I had two things, if I had the university, or still has really, the university and the Oni's Palace. So it wasn't that we grew up in a very cosmopolitan, very city in that sense. But at a certain point in time, if I allowed you to believe you could do anything and be anything, and it worked. We went to public primary school, public secondary schools, a public university that it was. But regardless of that, and even now, we joke about it, competing with, for a certain generation, Unilag children, UI children, AUN children, and then I guess the other one, the ABU children, sort of the first generation universities. There was just something about those universities at that point in time that made you feel you could do anything and be anything. So for me, that Nigeria that made you feel you could do anything, be anything, is the context from which I operate from, in a sense. And so for me, activism is not a job, even though I did work for an organization where it's what I did every day, but it's a Nigerian believing Nigeria can do better and Nigerians deserve better. So it's not necessarily that I decided I wanted to be an activist. I just believe I deserve better. And this gave me a platform to talk about it and act on it, in a sense.
So in terms of all the campaigns, when you look at all the campaigns you've had over the years, over the last 15 years, what is the one sacrifice that you made that the public never saw, but it defined your leadership in the area of activism? Because you have to be able to say, this really pushed me to the edge. And you had to make a decision that this is not who I am. I will not go down this path. But you know that this is a sacrifice because this path seems quite juicy.
Interesting question. I think, to be honest, is probably in the choosing to take on the role and not without really understanding the space. So because for me it was non-profit, we were just speaking about governance and whatever issues. I didn't see it necessarily as work in that sense. And because of that, the choices I made around how the organization was structured and the remuneration that people got saw it in that light, which was unfortunate because people then came into the organization, unfortunately, with on a pay scale that reflected my understanding of what this was, which wasn't necessarily fair because people still had bills to pay. And I think for me, it ended up being a sacrifice, not just for me, but really for the team for a period of time. Because it then took us a while to then shift people's salaries. And it's still on a journey to where it would make sense, in a sense. So I think I entered it clearly that I was going to sacrifice what my earning potential was. Yes, obviously it's not private sector, but I think I discounted it a lot more than I should have. And that then had a ripple effect within the organization for quite a number of years.
Yeah. And that's like a military president insisting I'm a colonel and nobody else gets promoted.
Very precisely. It's a problem.
So nobody gets to become a general.
Because I am calling myself a colonel. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you first started AIE, did you ever imagine the movement will grow to influence civil engagement across the country? And I will mention this, Yemi, I've called you sometimes, and you're in America, and then you're in London, and then you're back in America, and you're back in Nigeria, and you're traveling all around the world. And anybody that doesn't know the amount of work you put in from as early as 3, 4, 5 a.m. in the morning will assume that you're just junketing and having fun. So help me understand your journey. What's it been like? And what is it that you've had to sacrifice?
What has it been like? The truth of the matter is, because it wasn't a planned organization, I always say we made it up as we went along. And so as the years unfolded, so the founders, in a sense, Adebola and Chude, this is now, the protest was 2010, organization was 2011. By 2014, they had entered partisan politics. And so they then stepped aside. And I suddenly, not suddenly, but I was then kind of by myself, for lack of a better word. Even though there were other people involved, still they hadn't gone partisan at the time. So Gbenga Sheson was one of them who was then became board chairman at the time. But a few other people had. I mean, someone like Audu Mekori from Occupy, he was part of the 2010-2011. After Occupy, he joined the the Kolade committee. I forget what that was called. Shopi, that's it. He joined Shopi, for example. So different members that were part of EIE then chose different paths as we all went along. And so part of the journey is how does one manage that? So you have very visible founders who had become very partisan, which obviously reflected on EIE, that also, okay, were we now partisan? What did that look like? And having to deal with that, so to speak. But one of the things
maybe it would be good for you to share some of the names. What was the role of the likes of Debola Williams? What was the role of the likes of Chude, the likes of MI, the likes of, yes, you mentioned Audu Mekori and other. What was their role in the formation of this organization?
I spoke to you earlier. Chude was the one that wrote the email. So Future Project hosts the Future Awards. Future Project was founded by Chude and Adebola. So it was on their platform that NOI Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala made that statement. Chude then followed up with an email. And then the protest and the footwork of the protest in Abuja was done by Adebola Williams. He was the one that went to the National Assembly, wrote letters, and worked on mobilizing people to be there. And this is now 15 years ago. At the time, Chude was 24, Adebola was 26. And so these were young people who really just put their all in. Now, on the platform of the Future Project, they were looking at youth culture. So the likes of your Omotola, who was at the front lines at the National Assembly, were pop cultural icons, if I want to, lack of a better word. So those in the music business, those in the movie business, were all part of the Future Project ecosystem. So that's where MI was on the Chocolate City label, which was owned at the time by Audu Mekori. Banky W was on the EME label. They were part of it as well. Obi Asika, who's now Director General of a government agency, and Storm Records were part of it at the time. Omawumi, Waje. I mean, a whole community of young people in the entertainment space were part of EIE in the early days and lent their voice to young people participating. So Sam Sultan, Timi Dakolo, Ebuka, there's a whole long list of them that were active in those days. And then in the 15 years, as you see, different people have then chosen different paths. So Chude and Adebola did partisan work for a while on the Buhari campaign and then pulled back within Nigeria, but continued to advise other presidents across the West African coast. So Ghana, and I think I want to say Liberia, or one other country on the West African coast. Banky W, for example, went into politics as a player, if I would use that word. Kate Henshaw ran for office at a point in time. She was also part of the early days. Who else? MI has now set up an agency to help influencers or pop culture, or pop icons, in a sense, understand how to use their voice and what causes they can align their voices with. So yeah, so different roles that different people have had over the years. Now, so fast forward, that in that journey is just in managing what that looked like. Sometimes under an APC government, okay, when it was PDP, Jonathan came in, we were called APC because we were critical of the PDP government. Some people still say we were instrumental to Jonathan losing 2015 elections. And I think it makes sense because, I mean, first of all, Chude and Adebola were working for Buhari, and then we were critical of the Jonathan administration, so it felt like we were working for the opposition. And then obviously APC comes in, and now that we're critical of APC, first it was that we're opposition. Now that the opposition doesn't really exist, they don't know if they are coming or going, people say we are not shouting enough. Because people forget that what happens with civil society and opposition parties is because you're critical of the government in power and you want them to do better, there's an alignment. So it seems as if we're working together. But now that the opposition in Nigeria has literally no voice, the amplification that civil society gets from opposition who want to get into power doesn't exist. So it then feels like our voice is not as heard or not as loud, I should put it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll take a short break now, but when we return, we continue our conversation with Yemi Adamolekun. We'll go deeper into her experiences, the challenges she's faced, and the legacy she hopes to leave behind as she has served for 15 years and she's stepping aside in the manner of speaking. So stay with us. This is still 60 Minutes with Mr. K. It continues in a minute. Welcome back to 60 Minutes with Mr. K. If you're just joining us, we're having a thoughtful conversation with Yemi Adamolekun, a leading voice in civic advocacy and a guiding force in citizen engagement. Before the break, we explored the beginnings of our journey. Now we'll step further into the work, the challenges, and the choices that shaped our path. Let's continue the conversation, Yemi. You've been at the forefront of campaigns like NSAS, Bring Back Our Girls, looking at the current wave of school kidnappings and insecurity. How do you see civic activism evolving to protect vulnerable communities today?
Unfortunately, it's not evolving in a good way. I mean, Chibok girls were abducted 11 years ago. And it was out of that abduction, just out of the sheer, how dare somebody enter a school and kidnap girls, that you had the kind of visceral, immediate response that you saw in Abuja, led by Diza Bala Usman, Obi Ezekwesili, calling for citizens. And in Lagos, we've continued to meet Amina Oyebode, Abiba Balogun every week, literally since that time. But to your point, fast forward now to 2025. Similar number of children kidnapped from a school. And beyond tweets, maybe a press statement, TV interviews, nothing has happened.
So have we gotten used to just
for sure.
This thing? It's become normalized.
Yeah. So it doesn't mess with your mind the way you used to. I mean, that Chibok one was so, and it was shortly after escapes me at the moment. There were boys that were kidnapped from a school also shortly before. 57 boys a school that was attacked shortly before then. So the Chibok girls one was very jarring, but now abductions are not as jarring. It's bad and we condemn it, but it doesn't shift you in a way that it did, and it's very unfortunate. But it's just the nature of the human mind. Your mind adapts to cope.
So what is it that has happened to us as Nigerians that has made it such that we have normalized something that should, what was the word you said should have used? The outrage. So where is the outrage today? Why are there no young people writing the same memo, same press statement, same noise, saying, look, where is the outrage when 200 are taken, 300 are taken, 20-something in Niger State, and over 200 killed in Benue State, and even the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria would not even deem it necessary to not just go to Makurdi, but go to...
Yelawasa.
Yeah.
But even now...
Where's the outrage?
Even now, with all the things that have happened in the last 6 weeks, with the abductions and all of that, the president has not addressed Nigeria. And it's okay. It's like acceptable, like we just move on. Where is the outrage? The outrage is buried in our bellies, is what I say. And it's buried in our bellies for a number of reasons. 1, survival. 2, trauma. 3, a sense of helplessness. That, okay, I get angry, then what? What will happen? So what? And almost feeling that I'm the only, feeling that you're the only one. So if you want to do something, I want to get angry. Are there others that share my anger? Are there others that care enough? and also I think we yeah. So everybody's kind of focused on what they need to survive and get through, and doing any national type of crisis or cry is not really worth it.
During the Chibok days when it happened, I remembered I was the general manager of a different television station, and almost on a daily basis, the person I called my sister and my friend, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, we talked almost every day. And I saw her weep, not cry, weep about those children that, Kadi, can you imagine? These are our children. These are my children that have been kidnapped. That sense of outrage and trauma and unhappiness. Now, I am wondering, what do we need to do to rekindle a spirit of we can't let this go? Because I can't see a bright future. And I will give you an example. There was a day I was in a car with Obi herself. I don't want to mention name. There is a former governor of a state who became a minister who was in that car, and he was a front-line politician who said, Nigeria is a hopeless case. And this was sometime around 2015, 2016.
10 years ago.
That's 10 years ago. And I won't be surprised if somebody interviews him today and he still says Nigeria is still a hopeless case. So what's your thought?
It's hard not to believe that based on what one sees. It's hard not to, but yeah, it's hard not to believe that based on what is before you. But I guess for me, it's an intentional choice. It's a choice not to accept it and not to sit in it, so to speak. Because if Nigeria is a helpless case, then I should pack my bags and go somewhere else, really, and find something else to do. But I fundamentally believe that there is something in every Nigerian that can be reawakened to believe in the country again. I was speaking at an event 2 weeks ago, and university students, some secondary school students, and the person who spoke before me said, does Nigeria care about you? They said no. Then he asked, do you think Nigeria sees you? They said no. So he then asked, do you care about Nigeria? They said, of course not. So I think it can be rekindled when citizens feel that they matter. When citizens feel that this country, and in a sense, when you say this country, then it really has to be government, actually sees me, knows me, and cares about me. And there's nothing in our current government. I mean, just before we went on air, I was speaking to a member of the ruling party, and we're joking about it. But there's nothing in what this ruling party is doing or saying that communicates to Nigerians that we see you, we hear you, and we care about you.
Okay, so let's move very quickly because of limited time. During the doctrine of necessity era, when Goodluck Jonathan became president, how did enough is enough interpret its role in shaping awareness and civic responsibility at such a critical political moment?
At the heart of it is education. And that's what I was trying to say earlier, that there's nothing in our structure that teaches that a democracy means that you have voice, you have agency, and you get to co-create what it is that is important to you. At a point in time, EIE had radio programs on 33 of our 36 states. Wow. And the FCT. And the idea, it was called the Office of the Citizen. Let me dial back a bit. So we started with enough is enough, stop, that enough is enough, we demand change, blah, blah, blah. As I said earlier, we made it up as we went along. In 2014, I heard the same Obi Ezekwesili speak at an event, and she shared about the concept of the Office of the Citizen. It was the first time I was hearing it, but it resonated. And in doing more research, I realized that it's a phrase that had been used 40, 60, 80 years ago in the US. But she just made it up on her own, not really knowing that it had been used anywhere else. And we took that, and because it resonated with what we were trying to do, let citizens know they have voice. You have an office to occupy. You engage governance structures. So when we turned 10 in 2015, we launched it as a campaign, the Office of the Citizen campaign, where she gave the keynote address. We then partnered with the National Orientation Agency, and the idea was, let's teach citizens their rights and responsibilities. We created a logo that includes the coat of arms, and it has a nice Office of the Citizen of the Federal Republic. Now, unfortunately, the NOA wasn't well funded, so we really couldn't ride on NOA, but we went through our radio station or programs, and we had the Office of the Citizen programs. And what we realized is that people were very comfortable calling in to complain and talk about this person didn't do this person didn't do that. But the structure of our radio programs was to give you the tools to solve your own problems. So if you call and complain, for example, that the gutter in front of your house was full, nobody was cleaning it, I will tell you, your local government chairman is Kayode Akintemi. His number is 0706 blah, 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 blah. Call him. It's his job to keep your gutters clean. 9.5 times out of 10, callers will say, really? I can call them? Yes, you can. They work for you. And for me, that's the underlying challenge of citizens not understanding that public officials are their servants. That's why they're called public servants. And not servants in a derogatory way, but servants in the sense that you provide service. You serve me. And so with Office of the Citizen, that's what we've tried to shift, in letting citizens understand that fundamental truth. But it takes time. It takes reinforcement. And that's why I said at the beginning that unfortunately, media, and I'll put you on the spot a bit, we don't do as good a job of amplifying, even though we're now working on correcting that, of amplifying the power that citizens have in shifting those things. And that's for me what I want to see, because I think when that is reinforced and people see stories from Calabar to Enugu to Nasarawa to Yobe of citizens engaging. So they didn't need to protest. They didn't need to block a road. All they needed to do was walk in to a local government chairman's office or engage their senator or House of Rep member, and they get results. And we're like, okay, this can work. Now, it's not that simple. I'm not trying to pretend that it's just a simple, you just go in and they give you a red carpet entrance. Yeah. No. There's work to be done, but it is possible.
Okay, so we've got just a couple of minutes before we wrap up this segment, but let me quickly sneak this question in. Enough is now played a prominent role in the Occupy Nigeria protest. Looking back now, do you feel the movement was used by political interests, or you still stand by every decision that was made at that time? Because those who were part of that protest, like the current president, who some people said he engineered and funded some of it, and supported it strongly through his speeches and written words in different newspapers, are now the same set of people who are saying remove it. It has to go. It's corruption.
Well, certainly. And that's the nature of politics. But I don't think we should ever let people's interests take away from citizens' desire to act. So I think December of 2011, we had written an interesting in Ngozi Okonjo while I was Minister of Finance at the time. In December 2011, EIE had actually written to her requesting an audience because we wanted to understand this whole fuel subsidy structure, why it was a problem. And then I think 1st of January or 2nd of January, it was removed and the protest started. Because our position was, we hear you that you say it's corrupt, but why are you penalizing Nigerian citizens for government incompetence? Because it's your inability to jail people, curb the corruption that continues to let it subsist. And we've seen it since then, from Femi Otedola to Farouk to now Dangote is fighting another Farouk. The lack of transparency within the sector is at the heart of the challenge. Now, were citizens right in being upset? Citizens' action not mobilized by anyone until obviously Save Nigeria Group entered and all of that? Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So many experts now say that the most strategic time to remove fuel subsidy was actually during Jonathan administration. With the hindsight now, do you have any regrets that you were part of the protests that unfolded during that era? Do you
Not at all.
wish you had not
No,
been
not at all.
part of it, knowing what you know now?
Not at all.
No regret
Not at all.
whatsoever.
Because at the heart of it, I still fundamentally believe, and we're still having the same problems now. I said it, I say it for anybody who cares to hear. The minute Aliko Dangote granted Premium Times, an online publication that's seen more as anti-government in a sense, just because they break news, they're online and edgy again a bit in their reporting. The minute Aliko Dangote granted them an exclusive interview on this refinery matter, I knew that Aliko had decided that he wanted to fight. Now, why he's fighting, for who he's fighting, can be debated from now till eternity. But all it says is that the sector is not transparent. It doesn't make Aliko innocent by any stretch of the imagination, but all his actions, 2 days ago, is accusing a regulator of spending $5 million on his children's school fees. By the time someone who's probably the biggest player in the space is taking on regulator, is using pricing to affect how people see him and playing those games, and nobody will say that they have an understanding of the clear structure. With NNPC, we've gone from 30 million liters to 90 million liters. Just the numbers just go all over the place. Now, until government is clear and wants to be transparent about what's happening in that space, I will not have any regrets of making a decision to say your incompetence is costing Nigerians, and we're still seeing it now, or your incompetence in an unwillingness to be transparent about this is the structure. We have refineries that don't work, yet we're paying staff, quote unquote. We've done turnaround from, what's her name again? What's that woman's name? Our former minister.
Oh, Unguarded Conjola.
No. Diazani.
No, Diazani.
From the day of Diazani with her statement around turnaround maintenance, we've been turning around maintenance since even before Occupy in 2012. But yet we don't have functional refineries in this country. So what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Not only that, we're spending stupid amounts of money, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, to protect our pipelines.
Crazy. Absolutely mad. Oh, no, I listened to a presentation by Shell. And when I listened to I can't even mention the numbers in dollars that was being spent to protect pipeline. And I'm like,
what are we talking about? And then there's actually something circulating, I haven't been able to verify it, that the amount we're spending is similar to what we would be spending on subsidy. So what are we talking about?
Crazy. Well, we'll take a pause for a short break. When we return, we'll discuss the lessons from your activism, how Nigerians can engage safely in today's challenging environment, and what the future holds for civic movement, especially now. I don't know. I would also like to know when we come back, what's your next set of steps? So we're here with Yemi Adamolekun. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation.
Africa needs its own storytellers, people who understand the continent because they're from it. People who know that news is more than just a conversation starter, it's our stories. Because these stories run deeper than headlines and segments. It's about digging deeper to get the facts and telling the human side of every single story, not just the echoes from foreign headlines and perspectives. It's time to take back our narratives and share them in our voices. The birth of Africa's New Age reporting, and this is where it begins, right here at News Central TV, with stories that put Africa first.
Okay, you're still with us on 60 Minutes with Mr. K. And we're now moving into the final stretch of this conversation with Yemi Adamolekun. Before the break, we explored your journey and the impacts of the campaigns you've had over the years. Now let's focus on the lessons from your activism on how Nigeria can stay engaged, even in today's challenging security environment. So, You just stepped down and handed over to a young lady to take over Enough is Enough and run with it. When you look at what you have done over the last 10, 15 years, what comes through your mind when you reflect on leadership, responsibility, impacts that you've created? What runs through your mind?
Interesting. I think intentionality around the fact that we made it up as we went along certainly affected the organization. So there wasn't clarity in terms of, okay, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going about it. But when we landed on the Office of the Citizen Campaign, it gave it a bit of structure. But ultimately, I think on my journey, what has really been a blessing is the young Nigerians that have worked at EIE over the years. When we celebrated 15 years last week and we looked through the list, had about 70 people who had come through EIE's doors over the last 15 years. And yesterday, one of them sent me a note that made me teary-eyed, thanking me for lessons learned, thanking me for the opportunity to learn and realize that she could do better and she could push herself better. So for me personally, I think it's indeed been a privilege to show a generation that the fact that we're working on Nigeria or the fact that we're in a small office doesn't mean we should approach our work in any less an excellent manner. Or the fact that either a partner that we're working with says that, oh, it's okay, yeah, it's fine, we can manage it in Nigeria, oh, it's okay. No, it's not okay. And if we are also especially pushing for a Nigeria that works, then we should show up with that in mind. My team members used to get frustrated with me in terms of my edits. And I said, anything that comes out of this office represents Enough is Enough as a brand. And for me, I think represents me personally. So I'm very particular about how people experience us and what that says about us. Number one. Number two, I think it's easy for people to go on a journey with you when they see you on that journey, rather than you saying, we're fighting for Nigeria, but you're seated. Or we're fighting for Nigeria, but we're moving. It's easy to then say, come along with me on this journey. I think one of the things that's also been very rewarding is for colleagues that have been very clear about their role at EIE. So some are very clear that I'm here as a job. It's for me just a job. But working with those who have a passion for the work that we do gives it a different flavor to work with someone who shares your passion for a Nigeria that works. So yeah, mixed multitude. So I say that in the organization, I've seen the mixed multitude of that is Nigeria. So it's a constant reminder that as we're working for and about Nigeria, I am dealing with Nigerians internally and what that looks like.
Okay, so let's look at the things you've done. I remember that the last couple of years, I think off the top of my mind, I think over the last couple of years, it looks like you've been trying to capture the essence of the message of Enough is Enough. Are you putting it in book forms? Are you writing it in a way that people can digest? And what would be the significance of that going forward for those young people who will look at you and say, oh, Yemi Adamolekun, she was this and that and that and that and that. How does that help them?
One of the things that we don't do as a people is we don't document very well. We don't tell our stories very well. And it's getting harder now because everybody is a content creator. So it's a good thing, but it's harder because there's now such a proliferation of small bits that are people's opinions. So they might not necessarily be facts, but I can pick up a phone and record something that's my opinion, but it circulates, it lands in someone's WhatsApp, and someone might listen to it and think it's fact. So there's now a greater need for factual storytelling that allows us to tell our history. 5 years ago during NSAS, a lot of young people said they were the first ones to come out and work for Nigeria. But you can't really blame them because they didn't know. It's not taught in schools. Yes, you can sit on Google and Google it and find out. But in terms of the immediate top of mind, they didn't know. Meanwhile, the Enough is Enough protest was just 10 years prior. Not to talk of now concerned professionals that was, 28 odd years prior to that. But none of these stories are in accessible formats that makes it easy for people to engage. We're getting better, again, as I said, with content creators. So what we did when EIE turned 10 in 2020 was, what's 2020? Yes, 2020 is when we turned 10, was we decided to write a book. But instead of writing it from just our perspective, we decided to invite our funders, our supporters, our stakeholders to join. Christopher Collade wrote the foreword, but we also have writers from Tunde Bakare, Aisha Yusufu, Seun Nigbinde, Aisha Oyebode, Obi Ezekwesili. And the idea was to get people to reflect differently on EI's work over 10 years. So we have elections, use of technology, protests, fundraising, Office of the Citizen, and we had some of our pop culture ambassadors as well. Tubaba, MI, Banky W, talking about their voice, corruption, and the Nigeria of our dreams. So because of COVID, we couldn't publish it in 2020, so we published it in 2022. And then when we celebrated our 15th anniversary, this last week, we published the second edition because we thought in the last 3 years, two major things have happened. One, local governance. Local government work is now sexy. Well, they're now getting money, so everybody's talking about them. And then also NSAS, that we thought it was important to document that in the book. So that was presented last week. And Dr. Kolade died in October, so we also honored him at the event. So yeah, so volume 1. We're not volume 1, edition 1, edition 2.
Edition 1 and edition 2. One is green, one is white.
One is white.
So
different. And then also importantly, we also premiered a short film at the anniversary, looking at what I just said, the role of concerned professionals, enough is enough, and the NSAS, and just reminding people that it's not always organized civil society that gets citizens out. Citizens, when they are tired, will say enough is enough.
Okay, so what does the future hold for you, if you can see it? And I'm sure you can. You look into the future now. You've earned enough in terms of stripes to be able to say you can see what you're doing the next 5-10 years. You have an idea, even if it's not clear.
It's certainly Nigeria, related to
Yes.
Nigeria, in a different way. And I'll leave it at that. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. So in terms of activism, though, what would you be saying to those who are interested in it? They don't have an idea of how much sacrifice. They see you, they see Shore, they see all the other people who are into it. They even see all the ladies that are fighting about GBV and other things. And they think that these people are popular. They're on television, on radio all the time. And what they want is popularity and fame. What would you be saying to them?
I don't have a message for people looking for popularity, because find your popularity. But for those who are actually interested in making society better, it doesn't have to be what you do 9 to 5. So for me, running Enough is Enough as an organization has been 9 to 5. If I work for a different organization, would I still be a voice around governance issues? Would I still talk about government? Would I still get involved in elections? Most certainly. So in wherever space you find yourself, and what is it that's a bee in your bonnet or something that's getting you upset, find other people that share your ideas and try to figure out, how do we solve this? What do we need to know? Who do we need to engage to solve this problem? Start with the problem that you're trying to solve. Find out who the duty bearer is, the public servant who's responsible for it, and create a plan that's not just you, so you don't burn out as an individual. A community of people that are also affected to engage. Public officials understand their job, and they will not, they will engage people that are serious about getting them to work.
So we've had so many setbacks in Nigeria, almost every year, sometimes every quarter.
Sometimes every day.
Every day we have setbacks. Do you still believe that there is hope for this nation?
Oh, for sure.
You believe so?
For sure.
Very strongly.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you be saying to young people who feel that this is hopeless and that's why they want to japa?
They want to japa. I hear you and I see you that you think it's hopeless. But the level of how that shifts depends on you. Like if we're outsourcing Nigeria to that somebody or some messiah or some people will fix it, then there will be a challenge. But if you believe that you deserve better, that this country, I guess maybe the way I say is, why shouldn't Nigeria work? Why shouldn't it? Why shouldn't it work for me? Why shouldn't it benefit me? If you can answer that question, that it should. It should because I'm Nigerian. It should because I've seen the best of Nigeria. We always celebrate Nigerians that do well. It's still from the same Nigeria that they come. Yeah. So if you can tell yourself that I believe I deserve better, I know Nigeria can work because there's no reason why it shouldn't work, then ask yourself, what am I willing to do? And nobody is asking you to start an organization. Nobody is asking you to become an activist and get on the streets. It can simply be finding an organization that you share their interests and giving them time. So we always say you give people your time, your talent, or your treasure. So you donate your time as a volunteer, can be an hour a week, 2 hours a week. Your talent. If you're a lawyer, give pro bono legal services. If you can organize, help them organize. And lastly, your treasure. Organizations always need money to organize. So if it's money you have and you're a busy executive, but you can write a check, 50,000, 100,000, please do that and support. But there's something for everybody to do to find their voice in making Nigeria work.
Very interesting. On that note, I want to say thank you so much, Yemi Adamolekun. I wasn't sure what I was going to get, but I knew that you were good at sharing your thoughts over the last few years. Thanks for sharing your journey, your insight, your vision for the future. Your dedication to civic engagement and citizen empowerment has inspired countless Nigerians, and today's conversation reminds us all of the power of courage, persistence, and hope. So I want to say thank you. I wish you all the very best of luck in everything that you'll be doing from here on. Never mind the fact that you don't want to share it on this program. You don't want to give me the scoop and say you heard it first on 60 Minutes with Mr. K.
Very soon.
Very soon.
Yes.
Maybe you will come and share it here. We'll discuss it. And I'll be happy to have you. I think I've only had one person that's been on this show twice. And that's Daily Parrot to me.
Oh, right. Nice.
So you might be the next person that will be here twice within a very short time. So as soon as you know, do let us know. We'll be happy to have you. Yemi, thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
And to you, our viewers, thank you for spending this hour with us. I'm Mr. K, reminding you that every conversation holds the power to inspire, challenge, and guide us towards a better future, from the lessons of experience to the visions that shape tomorrow. May we all find ways to lead with purpose and leave a legacy that matters. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay curious, don't stop reading, and keep looking beyond the headlines. Thank you so much. My name is Kayode Akintemi.